titled, oh, there it goes, which is Data Fluency for Campaign Leaders. And so excited to get to preview some of the content and what we're going to be talking about in this upcoming 201. But want to know who else is here. So drop your name in the chat, optional pronouns, any identifying info you'd like to share about yourself, city, what has inspired you to get involved in campaigns and attend this Arena Academy, or to be interested in attending this Arena Academy. And so I can get us kicked off. I'm Santiago Martinez. I'm a partner here at Arena. I help run our data. I also help oversee the toolbox and support Jess and our amazing training team execute these great trainings. So really, really excited about this one that's coming up. I currently live in Rockville, not Rockdale or whatever this says on the slide, but I live in Rockville, Maryland, just outside of DC. And so excited to put this training on because I think it's important to help everyone feel a little bit more comfortable in data, to step into their own power with respect to data and not feel so intimidated by it. And that's why I'm so excited about this one that we have coming up in March. And so looking around in the chat, we got Omar, Nikki, always great to have you back with us. Robert, campaign organizer and data in Alaska, all the way from Alaska. Fantastic. Got some folks in Kentucky. Bernice. All right. Well, fantastic. Looks like we got a good crew here in the house with us tonight. And who are we? So for those of you who don't know, there's some familiar faces, but there's also a lot of new folks here. Arena's mission is to convene and support the next generation of leaders. And so 201s in particular play a special role in that. There are a number of you who have maybe gone to Arena Academies in the past, or have been a part of, maybe you were on a campaign last cycle and you're looking to make the next step in your career. 201 is all about helping you step into those leadership roles on campaigns and help you get a leg up in your career. And so there are some core training values that the training team holds, and it's true across all the different trainings that we do, whether that is an academy, a volunteer training, or a 201 training like this. And it's one, to build community. It's welcoming people into the space, providing access to resources, helping you all get connected with each other and practitioners who are currently in the field, who you can learn from and help understand how we can support everyone together. Empowering everyone through skills development. Training is a means to empower people to make real progressive change in their communities. And so that's a part of every single training. And then at the heart of that is also strategy, where decisions are intentionally made in service of a mission and a team, in pursuit of our overall objectives and goals. And then overall growth. Every experience is an opportunity to push our thinking, hone our skills, and it's always important for us to be finding ways to continue growing. We're never fully grown. And so these are some of the overarching values that our team holds and thinks about when we're building each and every training. And our career services and all of our just core services at Arena sort of center around these 4 different pillars. So there's our training. We get very specific in terms of different types of roles or management or data, advanced specialization. But we also are helping folks in their careers with resume review, coaching. We maintain a resume bank and database that we can share with employers so we can help folks get from trained to getting to work, making that next step in their career. Then there's the community aspect, virtual coffees, self-organizing groups, giving you all the means to connect with each other, and then doing different convenings like our upcoming convening in Georgia. We're going to be bringing people together in person, and we're really excited about that. And so building community is a big part of what we do here at Arena. And then as you all are out in the field doing the work, having access to free resources like downloadable tools via our toolbox or plan templates, guides, all of the above are there to support you while you're in the thick of it, or you're just thinking about, oh, maybe I want to explore more in the digital realm or more about what happens post-campaign. These are resources that are all available for you all and are just a part of the services that we have at Arena. So this upcoming Data 201 is going to be data fluency for campaign leaders. The audience for this are campaign professionals who want to level up their data skills, learn how to use, analyze, and understand and run effective programs. So this group will be about 100 participants. Our deadline to apply is the 15th. But this is really, again, for anyone who, maybe doesn't see themselves as a data first person, or wants to take a leadership role in a campaign or an organization, and wants to be a little bit smarter with the data and how they use it. And so at the 201 for data fluency, we'll cover topics including data-driven strategy. We're going to go really in depth on spreadsheets and how you can use them, how they can be leveraged in all different facets. So I'll get into this more in terms of all the different flavors that we'll expose you to, and make sure that you feel right at home in spreadsheets coming out of this. We'll talk about how AI can interact with campaign data as well, how you can use it for troubleshooting, how you can be smart about how you use that information alongside everything else that your campaign has access to. We'll also talk a little bit about how you hire and how you collaborate with data staff to sort of bridge the gap between folks who maybe don't consider themselves data people and the technical folks who have access and know how to additional data and information that can really help power your campaign. And so how do we work with those individuals? How do we bring them on? What can they do for our campaign that we don't know about yet? And so that's one of my favorite sessions. And we'll get into the spreadsheets and budgets and organizing goals and media plans and a whole ton more. And so this is for anyone who's had at least one cycle of campaign experience. And for us, I believe that's 3 months on a campaign is like, that's enough to check that box. And so if you have one cycle experience and you're looking to take a step up into campaign leadership, this training is going to be for you. And so we'll be doing this training across 3 days, 2.5 days technically, but I'm going to highlight what we're going to talk about at each one. And the first day, we're going to go really deep into data strategy and planning. We're going to talk about the entire life cycle of a campaign and how you iterate and build plans, how you review, and how that data strategy is baked into everything that you do. And so that will be your first primer. And then we will be talking about spreadsheets. There we go. The animation's got a little fuzzy there out in space. But we're going to do spreadsheets on day 2. So emphasis on application. So say you are an organizer at heart. We're not going to just throw you into any old data set. We want you to feel comfortable. And so maybe you'll interact with a data set that is around organizing goals, and you'll have to refine some goals, make some changes to a spreadsheet, or maybe you've had some experience doing budgeting in spreadsheets, but you want to take it to the next level. We'll show you some tips and tricks in some budgeting templates, or maybe you're digital first practitioner. You're like, hey, I run email programs or digital fundraising. We'll do exercises that are in one of those 3 different categories so that you feel right at home, bringing your current knowledge and expertise and leveling up, taking it to the next level, learning from some folks who know spreadsheets in and out, but also know a little bit about how organizing works, or how budgeting, or how digital works. And if you feel right at home in any one of those and want to push yourself a little bit, it's a good opportunity to get some exposure to a new thing while learning some new spreadsheet skills. And so this will be a place where you can build on those skills. And then we'll have sessions on targeting, paid media, AI, and that will round out day 2. And then we will close it all out with hiring on day 3. So we'll go in depth and talk about different structures and how data staff interact with campaigns in different ways. What is it like when you have campaign staff embedded on your campaign versus when you are working with a vendor or you're working with someone who's at the state party? What are those different scenarios? How does that impact your org chart? How does it impact you and the many hats you may have to wear? And is one of those data, is one of those not? We'll go in depth into that and how you really collaborate with data staff in all those different scenarios. We'll also talk a little bit about polling, do some choose your own adventure. We'll be working with a whole host of different partners that we'll bring together to talk about, how you use data in different contexts. We'll talk about political tech. There are a whole bunch of different partners we're going to bring to those choose your own adventures so that you all can do a little mix and match and have some fun. Just a preview, an idea. Don't hold us to it. Don't quote us on it because we're still refining all of this. But here are a handful of different sessions that we'll cover. Data-driven campaign strategy. We're going to be answering some questions about how data informs your campaign strategy, how it supports a pathway to victory. How we'll talk about how it's developed. Data-driven strategy, the different cycles for planning, choice points. So at what points are we making critical decisions and how do we use data at those different times to make informed decisions or use the best available data to move forward? Covered this already, spreadsheets 201, some of the basics. We'll do a 101 session also before. So if you're like, Santiago, I don't know if I'm ready for spreadsheets 201, don't worry, we have you covered with some 101 in preparation for the next level stuff, 201. And again, you will be in great hands with all of our trainers who are some of the best in the biz in terms of breaking it down, making you feel comfortable in different formulas and formatting for spreadsheets and give you some of the know-how to do it yourself. So the main goal and objective with any spreadsheet session here at this 201 is helping you feel comfortable. If you're ever sent a spreadsheet, you know what to do with it. You don't feel intimidated by it. There's some of my favorite sessions that we do at this 201. And so excited to share those with you. We'll also talk about targeting and give you some of the know-how to understand predictive modeling. How do you start to know what different scores mean? We'll also give you some exercises so that you can practice getting feedback on voter contact universes. We'll talk to you about how to build some of those if you are in that position, but also, thinking about how you incorporate other things beyond just the voter file data or the predictive model support data, things like your capacity or the context that you're working in or the goals of your organization. How does that impact how you build voter contact universes? And so we're going to go into depth on that on day 2, but that's just a sample of some of the sessions that we'll have at this 201. And for some of my data folks who are in the house, we will have opportunities to dive into some technical aspects, but this isn't an overly technical training. We're going to go into spreadsheets. So if you are like a little worried, you're like, whoa, is this going to be like Spreadsheet City? Don't worry. Again, we're going to make you feel comfortable. You're going to be right at home in those spreadsheets, but it's not an overly technical training. We want to help you understand the why of data. Why are we using it? Why do we use it in certain circumstances versus others? What are some of its weaknesses? How do we collaborate with each other better using this data? So if you're a current data practitioner and you're looking at potentially attending this, I think this will give you a really good view of how to think about this at at a higher level than just what you see in a spreadsheet or what you see in a database or a CRM like Vote Builder. This will really help give you a window into how data can be used in that overarching strategy. And so that's just a little bit on this training. Jess, is there any questions or anything that's popped up in the chat before I go into the application?
There was a question about the timing for all of this. And so I want to put a big caveat that the agenda is not finalized. But to give you an idea of what we're looking at in terms of timing, on Friday, we typically do a half day, which starts at 2 p.m. and ends around 6 or 7 p.m. And then Saturday and Sunday are typically very full days, starting around 11 a.m. and ending about 7 p.m. All times are in Eastern times, but we will convert them for you also during the training if you're not in Eastern time zone. Hopefully that helps. If there are any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or drop them in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. This is an info session, so get the info you need to make a good decision to apply.
Info at the info session. Awesome. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the application itself. We recommend completing this in one sitting. And you may, this is how cookies work. And I learned this over at the Digital 201 back in December, but you can close it and return to the app as long as it's not in, as long as it's in the same device and browser. But can't be in incognito mode or private browsing, and that's like up to 15 days. But we want you to be able to complete this, and it is a little bit more of an intensive process, but it can be done in one sitting. So your pre checklist, your arena checklist for applying, make sure you have a copy of your resume. PDF is preferred so that we can open it. Sometimes I don't have pages. I'm a PC person, as you may have noticed. And so, I don't know if you can see the taskbar on here, which is not an Apple Mac taskbar. But I don't have pages. I'm not going to be able to open it. I'm going to have to ask Jess to do it. Jess is going to get annoyed with me. If it's in a PDF form, though, I'll easily be able to do that. We also will have 2 written responses. Oh my gosh, I'm getting roasted in the chat again. We'll have 2 written responses, 250 words or less, explaining why you want to attend this academy in particular. And so these are the 2 things, and we're going to give you some materials, and we'll walk through what those prompts are so you can prepare yourself in advance, and hopefully you can get through this quickly. Awesome. So it starts off just like any other application with your name, first name, last name, email. This is a big one because we will start communicating and sending you information with this email. So make sure that it is you can this is one that you check regularly. I know I have like 2 or 3 different emails, and one's for my like junk email subscriptions. This is not, use the good one. And so you can subscribe at any time, but we strongly recommend that you don't unsubscribe until after Academy to just make sure you don't miss any notifications from us. But after that, you'll get this screen that's like, hey, Santiago, and it'll reiterate some of the facts around doing this in one sitting, giving you that sort of checklist before you dive in for real. Then we'll gather some additional information about you and your demographics, how you identify, anything that you feel like you want to share with us, either related to gender, race, other parts of your identity, anything you're familiar, you want to share. If you don't want to share any information, you can just select for not to share on any of these and move forward through the application. And wow, this is really small. This is just a list of the number of events that we've done in the past. So if this keeps getting bigger and bigger, we're gonna have to figure out how to do like multiple columns or something, at least for the purposes of this presentation. So if you can see this, but on the application will list every arena event, and you can check the ones that you've been to. This way we know if you're visiting us again, and we definitely encourage folks to reapply for things. This is definitely one of the, sort of trainings that isn't held very often. So, we encourage past grads to attend, but we also strongly encourage new folks to attend as well. So if we see that your application is new, we'll also take that into account as well. And so that's just something that helps us give us a little bit more context on your application. And this, again, this 201 is designed for former and current campaign staff who've had at least one cycle. And here, we define and let you know that we consider a cycle 3 months or more leading up to an election or a primary general election. And so making sure this is a critical point that once you get to this question, we'll ask you if you've had at least one cycle of experience, either on a campaign or in a progressive organization. So if you're at a C3 or C4, some kind of nonprofit, and you've been there for more than 3 months, you can check yes to this question, or a PAC. And then you can also go into a little bit more detail around the total number of months that you've worked in a campaign or a progressive organization. And this helps us understand sort of also, what level folks are coming in at as well. We also want to know if you've managed campaign staff before. This doesn't impact your application, but again, helps us understand as we are developing exercises for the different sessions. Do folks have experience with that, or are they going to be newer and there are additional concepts that we should make sure that we help folks understand. We also want to know the highest level of position that you've held on a campaign. And so go ahead and let us know that. And then also super important, because again, we want to help aspiring leaders. Do you intend to work on a campaign or political organization in the future? And if you don't, that's great. But this campaign is specifically designed for those who do. And so that'll be really, really important. And so for future campaign work, I think I think we would consider some volunteer, but we're looking for folks who are interested in paid positions. I don't know if Jess has a different answer to Nikki's question there.
I think the answer is yes, and then please describe what your experience is and your prompt responses as well, and make sure it's clear on your resume as well, so that we have the full context of what's going on. For example, if your resume lists like a volunteer role on a campaign, then you would want to make sure in the bullet points it's clear that you were holding that role and there were not paid staff or something like that, so we know kind of the depth of responsibility that you took on that race.
Yeah, because if you're a volunteer campaign manager, that's a big deal, and we want to be able to support you in that work. Versus if you were just making calls or canvassing, that might be a different kind of scenario. And then we will get to the stage here where it'll prompt you about scholarships. We offer scholarships for this one. It is online and costs $200. And so we'll ask you if you feel comfortable paying that amount. If not, that just lets us know to, if you are admitted, to be able to offer you scholarships as part of that admissions notifications, and make sure that you get the support you need. But also, if you decide that you can pay for this, know that your funds from your registrations help fund other folks and give other folks an opportunity to attend the academy. And then we give you the prompt response to be able to fill in and upload your resume. And big note here, and a huge shout out to our careers team. If you are accepted, they will provide you with some personalized feedback to help you with your resume. And there also is a link here to our Arena Toolbox, writing your political resume. There's a tool there that can help you, get your resume into tip-top shape for this training, but also after the fact as you are working your way, to find your next role. And then prompt you for the next set of questions that are, the different prompt responses. This is the way for us to get to know you beyond the resume, to elaborate on your experience, give us your personal stories, or what is it that you want to do on a race, or why you're so passionate about getting involved with the cycle. And Jess has already done it, and done you a huge favor in attending this training. There is a link to some sample prompt responses, not just any sample. It's not just any sample. These are the best prompt responses. So check it out there. It's in the link in the chat. But prompt response number 1 is brought to you by the people who review these. Big shout out to them. How do you envision utilizing data in your current or prospective role in the 24 campaign cycle? And so this is prompt response number 1. And so we want to get a little bit of insight into how you're thinking about data already, how you're thinking about using it. And we want to ensure that you leave this training feeling prepared. And so this is one of the questions that the admissions are heavily weighted on. And so take your time, be thorough, and answer thoughtfully to this question. Sometimes people we'll see it. They're in a hurry. They do one line and then that's it. And I'm like, this resume is really good. Their LinkedIn profile, like, says they're doing the right stuff. I'm like, I wish I knew a little bit more about what they wanted to get out of this training, or what they thought about data, or any other topics that we've trained on in the past. And when it comes down to those tough decisions about who gets in and who doesn't, or who gets on the wait list, this is a place where if there's not a lot of information here, we might go with a different application who's given us more in terms of what they're thinking about. And so really hoping you all dig in on this question, and hopefully those best prompt responses help you out and think through what you want to cover in that. Then the second one is, what structures or practices do you feel are underutilized by leaders during decision making? And what is the impact of this? And so this is not necessarily a data specific question, but from where you sit, either in a current leadership position or as somebody who has been on the receiving end of decisions made by leaders on campaigns and organizations, like, what's going into that? What are the practices that you see, and how has it either impacted you or impacted others or the organization? What we're able to do together, as a progressive community. And so this is another one where our decisions are heavily weighted towards this question. And so want to be able to help you dig in. And then to close things out, if there's anything else you want us to know, any, hobbies, if you're like, right now, I'm really into cooking pies, Santiago, and I'm coming to Georgia and I'm gonna bring the whole team pies, this is a place to let us know. But no, seriously, anything fun, about yourself, or something that maybe didn't fit in the other prompt responses or isn't in the resume, this is your last call to let us know. And maybe we're like, yeah, we'd love some peach cobbler or something. I don't know. Is there a peach pie? Or is it a cobbler?
I think it's both. I
It's
feel that
both. It's both. Identify as techno. Thank you, Jason. See, that's an important thing. Um, and then after you hit submit, you will get a notification that says thank you. your application has been submitted. And if you have any questions, you can reach us at hello@. There is an additional thing because, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, we have an in-person event coming a month after this training in Atlanta, Georgia. And so you also get a prompt after you submit this application to see if you're interested in coming and meeting with us in person for an Arena Academy and Summit. So in addition, I'm going to pause there, see if there are any questions. Jess, anything else in the chat before I go into more prompt response stuff?
Yeah, there are a few questions. I think it might be good to answer the 3 that we have right now. I think we've already covered some of this material that's coming up. So I think a good time to pause for questions. Robert asked a question. I spend a lot of time with electoral and voting data, and my day job is as a data analyst working in homelessness. Is this course still a good fit for me? My answer is yes, and I'm happy to explain from my perspective why that is. I am a graduate of this particular course and also have a data background, but I'll let Santiago answer first.
Yeah, I think it is. And especially if you're coming from a different context that's not necessarily electoral, this will give you good insight into, you know, in a campaign context, how is data used? How are leaders in a campaign context thinking about using data? We'll talk a lot about what campaign timelines look like, different intervals and choice points that might appear on a campaign where, you're going to be faced with a decision, and how do you use that decision with the data, and what data is available to you at those different points on the calendar, because the answer might be different depending on what's available. And so I think it'll give you a good insight into that.
Yeah, and Robert clarified also managing campaigns and running field programs. So Robert, from my perspective, I was coming into Data 201 from a very similar position. I was the programs director at Battleground Texas, where not only was I the data director, but I was also in charge of our organizing program. I was managing staff. I had some budgetary responsibilities as well. And I think one thing that's very unique about this training is that it is a space for practitioners from leadership and from data to interchange ideas with each other and to really learn best practices from other practitioners, which we don't typically have a lot of opportunity to do. And so I found that very, very valuable. And I took with me multiple skills that I wasn't expecting to learn. I thought I was coming to kind of be in solidarity with my staff that I was sending. And I actually learned quite a bit from it. And I'm very glad that I attended this and ahead of the 2022 cycle. So strongly encourage you. I was in your boat. Would love to see you. We have another question. Dominique says, can you please provide an example of the type of spreadsheet/data work you consider to be at the 201 level? I'm not familiar with the 101, and I'm here to determine if this would be an appropriate training to send some of my staff to.
Yeah, and so we will also cover some of the 101 as well, but I think 201 level will get into some, more advanced formulas. We'll definitely do VLOOKUPs, some pivot tables, but we'll also talk about sort of, how do you edit and manipulate existing sort of calculator type spreadsheets, whether that is a budget template or a goals document, and how those things are constructed, and how do you use some basic reference formulas to be able to sort of create spreadsheets that are not just these sort of static data sets, but are actually interactive and help you plan and use things like, okay, what is our contact rate and how many people do we need to reach? And, how does that match up with the number of hours in a day our organizers have to devote to this activity? And, what are the appropriate goals to set for them? And what are the assumptions that we want to use to set those goals? Or what are our assumptions around our budget? And so how do you take those assumptions, plug those into an existing template or make a template from scratch in order to be able to use those in the planning process or goal setting process. And so we'll sort of help you figure out how to, sort of edit and manipulate templates. So there are a lot of good examples in the Arena toolbox for budget templates or goals templates, but oftentimes you need to adapt those to your own context. And so giving folks the ability to understand how to make edits to some of those more complex documents, and so that they actually meet your needs and you use them versus start them and maybe, sort of you close them because it's not relevant to you as much. And so those are some of the spreadsheet skills that we would talk about.
Yeah, I'll also add on that as I was a participant in this, I found many of the spreadsheet sessions to be actually generative for me because maybe I wasn't necessarily crafting a paid media related spreadsheet in my role, but I was able to kind of understand, okay, taking this skill that we've just learned here, I could apply that to this aspect of my work, and that will save me hours of my time. And also my organizers will have better insight into what I'm doing. And so it wasn't just, from my organizing perspective, it wasn't just like a goals sheet and like an hours ramp or whatever. I was able to kind of be more creative with how I was applying some of the skills. We have another question from an anonymous participant. Do you consider issue-specific campaigners and organizers as a fit? We have a lot of staff at our C4, a split entity organization, who haven't really worked on political campaigns, and work with base building, membership building, issue work, etc. I would say yes, we certainly do. Very straightforward answer to that question.
Second plan.
Bram has a hand up, and then Stephen has a question in the chat.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up, Santiago, on your answer about spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Are you talking about kind of descriptive spreadsheets that kind of track what we're doing, or is 201 going into some SQL or whatever, brand to SQL you want and looking for predicted data that way?
Yeah, so it'll be less SQL. Some of the advanced formulas that we might introduce you to have some aspects of SQL. So almost like a SQLite sort of we'll introduce some of those concepts. But the spreadsheets, I think, will really delve into here's some advanced formulas, here's how we use them in the context of our planning, whether that is paid media or goal setting or budgeting. But a lot of that, and Jess is highlighting this in the chat, a lot of the sort of logic and syntax is very similar to sort of, it's almost like a building block. If you understand spreadsheets really well, that next step on in terms of SQL and databases and how those work, it sort of builds on that and gets you ready for some of the more advanced SQL.
Thank you.
Thanks for the questions, y'all. Just as a quick note, there is a note in the chat about hoping to use data from Van, importing and exporting back and forth between spreadsheets and Van. We will not dive into NGP products or Van specifically in this training. So just want to note that.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about like data standardization, and some of the spreadsheets exercises will like interact with some data that looks very similar to it. And we'll talk about like sort of, how information in a spreadsheet is organized. And that helps you connect it up to Van or any different type of CRM. And so hopefully these are skills and things that are applicable, whether you're using Van or any other NGP products or any other CRMs that are out there. Great. Well, I will move forward So again, those two questions, how do you envision utilizing data in your current or prospective roles? And what structures or practices do you feel like are underutilized by leaders when during decision making? What is the impact of this? These are going to be our main questions and prompt responses that we're going to look at pretty heavily during our admissions process. And so just avoiding some common pitfalls, you know, don't just copy and paste from the skills that we put on the 201 website, or just pasting a cover letter in there, or just being extremely brief. Go into detail. We want to know, what is your plan for thinking about this in terms of your professional goals and how this is going to help you in the 2024 cycle, in your current role or your future role, and articulate what those skills are going to mean for you. And then again, thinking about what are those structures that are missing, and being thoughtful about solutions that you might propose or things that you're hoping to get answers to, even if you don't have fully formed solutions yet. But pointing you in the right direction, not listing something like hyper specific. Oh, the geocoding in van is really bad. I'm like, yeah, sometimes it is, but like, what else can we do? And how does that impact our decision making, or leaders' decision making, or being too broad about all the data is bad, or I had this one bad experience in 2016 with data. We want to be able to get an understanding of the impacts that decision making can have, and what are those practices that we should be using or haven't been using enough to help us move forward. Don't name names. Yeah, that's a good point. Claire,
Always very uncomfortable to read when someone has a really long paragraph that has names of a person. I can tell that something happened.
Something happened. We're here for you. We want to make it better. But we don't need to go that in depth. But pointing us in the direction of solutions again, even if it's not fully formed yet. That's okay. All right. We're getting down to the wire here. Timeline, 201 application. The application is currently open. The deadline is the 15th, midnight Eastern. Closing it up. We're going to start reviewing. Well, we're going to start reviewing right now. After this, I'm not going to do that after this. I'm going to eat some food or something, or see what's going on in the news. But February 23rd is when our notification deadline is. And then from there, we'll have a rolling sort of following up with folks who have been accepted, letting you know if you've been on the wait list. And as people are registering or finding out that they can't, or we find we can increase the number of slots, we'll be letting folks know if they are accepted. And I believe maybe the latest that you might hear from us is maybe the 11th. But I don't know, check my facts on that, Jess.
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm pulling up. We've got our whole Miro board up right now. So 2 seconds.
Yeah. So the 23rd would be the first time you would hear from us as we are figuring out our application deadlines and review. And yeah. Ooh, good question. Is there an Arena Cup style challenge with this program? There is not an Arena Cup style challenge, but there will be a lot of exercises in each session. Some will build on each other, some will be a little bit more one-off, but hopefully that gives you opportunity to interact with data and information, or talk with each other about the content that you're receiving, or talk with panelists in a way that hopefully gives you some inspiration, something creative comes out of that you want to apply in your current work. But there will be a lot of interaction in this program, just not in a team sort of set like the Arena Cup. If you don't get accepted, here's some reasons why maybe not having the cycle experience. Again, that's a key component of this one. Not sharing details on how you want to use this training, indicating that you don't intend on working on campaigns or progressive organizations or nonprofits. And then also not demonstrating understanding of what's being covered in this. Sometimes for this, sometimes people are like, yeah, I really want to learn how to do fundraising, or I really want to learn about, email writing. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And we can refer you to our Arena Academy. But those aren't going to be topics that we'll go in depth on. And so we do make referrals sometimes for folks. If we're like, this is a great app, this person has a lot to offer, and we want to support you, but maybe this training just isn't the right fit at this time. So we'll make those recommendations as well. March 4th, you'll hear from us at the latest on March 4th, and then apply. Any questions? Anything else in the Q&A, or feel free to raise your hand and come off mute.
I want to raise my hand and come off mute.
Oh, sweet.
And I want to talk about using ChatGPT to write your prompt responses, because I haven't ranted about that in a few weeks. If you want to use ChatGPT to write your prompt responses, you're not the only one. A few people will do that. And we'll read hundreds of applications, and I don't know, like 10% of them will be ChatGPT, and they'll all sound really similar no matter how hard you try to switch it up. So just flagging that. If you want to use it for some inspiration to get yourself started, maybe I can see that, but don't copy paste directly from ChatGPT for your application. That has not gone well in the past. There's my rant.
Furthermore, moreover, I almost like that. That's almost like a dead giveaway. So just be careful with that. Yeah, it's a little cookie cutter.
There is another question in the Q&A, and if y'all have more questions, please feel free, drop them in the chat or drop them in the Q&A. Question from the Q&A: will there be any kind of certification offered by Arena after the training?
Oh, Jess.
I'm happy. I was gonna say I'm happy to take it.
I was like, yes, tell us.
So we are working closely with our careers team to figure out how we're going to offer certification and what that means for Arena as an entity on LinkedIn. So it's likely that we won't have a perfect solution by the time of this academy. But what we will do is give you guidance on how to put the information on LinkedIn, and we'll always be happy to verify that any of our past grads have attended if anyone needs any kind of verification or anything like that. But we are working on how we will be offering certification moving forward.
Yeah, well, you're in current talks with the good folks at LinkedIn about it. It's very exciting.
It is in some ways very exciting. Jason said, any of this going to be at the summit? You're asking the right people, and the answer is we do not have any of these sessions currently scheduled in the summit programming, with the exception of targeting. However, the targeting session that will be in this Data 201 will be significantly more advanced than the targeting session that is happening at Summit. So they share the same name, but they are not the same content.
Yeah, they have the DNA of some of these sessions is in some of the Summit content, but again, it's a different context. Sometimes we're going deep into what campaign managers need to know with respect to data. Sometimes it's like, for data folks at the Summit, how do you use this data in the context of a SQL database? So it gets much more technical, I think, at the Summit as well.
Cool. Yeah, Jason, that makes sense. Other questions?
Going once, going twice. Sounds like we're going to see Jason in Georgia too. Fingers crossed.
Well, you don't have to, if you think of a question later, you don't have